Hello and welcome to All Things Educational, the video show. I am your host, Dr. Mateen Diop, and I'm so excited today to be able to bring the pages of All Things Educational, the magazine, to life. As you may not know, All Things Educational, the video show actually started off as a magazine. The first issue came out not too long ago to rave reviews, and we are so proud and so anxious to be able to bring those pages to life for you here today on All Things Educational, the video show. We're going to talk about so many different things on All Things Educational Video Show that time won't allow us to do everything we need to do. But I want you to sit back and relax because today we're going to have a very special guest with us. His name is Dr. Loren Alves. Dr. Alves is what I like to call the Paul Robeson of the day. He's a father, a husband, a military man. He's an author, a singer, writer, you name it. Dr. Alves does it. There are no topics that are off limits on All Things Educational. We're going to cover everything. So sit back, relax. We're going to be with you in a minute on All Things Educational. Welcome back to, again, the inaugural, the very first edition of All Things Educational, the video show. I'm your host, Dr. Mateen Diop, and like I said before, you will not be disappointed with our very special guest we have with us today, Dr. Loren Alves. Dr. Alves is a military man. He's a husband, a father, a writer. He does everything, what I like to call the Paul Robeson of our day. So welcome, All Things Educational, the video show, Dr. Alves.
How you doing, Dr.
How
Diop?
are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Man, I'm so glad to have you with us today, and I'm going to get right to what I want to talk to you about. You've done so many different things, but I want to start really with your military life. You and I have had these conversations before, and you've made it to almost the top level, the top brass, if you would, in the United States Army. But talk to me a little bit about, at what point did you decide the military was going to be a career for you?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, coming out of dental school in 1979, I thought I had a job lined up, and it turns out that the young man I was going to work for, he had to send his daughter off to Stanford, which was a high expensive tuition that he had to pay.
Right.
So consequently, I looked at some alternative methods, and first thing I saw was the Army, military. They were offering me 30 days vacation, pay, and so forth and so on. So I thought it would be a great opportunity. Having gone through a situation with my older brothers, going through the military with Vietnam as grunts, as they called them, and soldiers and then Marines, they told me to go out and get an education. And I thought, great, get my education. And the next best place to get a job would be the military because they also train you well. And that's exactly why I chose to go into the military.
Now, you made it all the way up to 06. For those that don't know, 06 is a full bird colonel, one step away from being a brigadier general. You made it all the way up to 06. At what point in that, I guess you can say in your journey, when you reach major or lieutenant colonel, at what point did you decide, you know what, I can probably make 06? This is doable. At what point was that for you? That
was at a point where I had, we actually have what they call they review your milestones, what you've done in the military. And I was sitting at a class and they were talking about at this level, captain, at this level, major, these are the things that you should have done. And at that point, I had all those things done already. So my next stage was lieutenant colonel, which I came up for promotion to that. So at that point, carrying on, the next step was once I did received the lieutenant colonel position, I did some more educational training and particularly going into a specialty training of pediatric dentistry, and that was another milestone. So once you knock off these milestones and you come up into what they call the zone for promotion, I had all the tickets punched. And that next ticket was to become promoted to colonel. Before we take our break, I want to ask you one quick thing. When you became an 06, when you became a full bird colonel, did you feel the need, was there a certain responsibility within you to mentor younger officers coming up behind you? Absolutely. I had a young man, Colonel Ford. I say his name very seriously because he was a surgeon, oral surgeon. We were stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. He was a colonel and I was a lieutenant colonel. And he started teaching me the rigors of understanding the authority that you're going to possess when you become a colonel. And he mentored me and he said, pass it on. Don't keep it to yourself. And I've done just that because I know there's a lot of young men, young women who get into a position where they really keep it to themselves, become selfish, and never become passing it on or passing it back to the younger generation. So I felt that I had to do what he had instructed me to do, and also a need. I felt a need, and I've always been mentored and helped out throughout my career, so I'm going to help someone else. Well, don't go away. We're going to be right back with more of Dr. Loren Alves and give you something to think about after these words. Welcome back to All Things Educational, the video show. I'm your host, Dr. Mateen Diop.
We're talking live with you today to Dr. Loren Alves. He just finished talking to us about his military career and everything he's done. I want to transition now, if I could, Dr. Alves, and talk to you a little bit about your dental practice. Now, did you receive your dental training, if you would, in the Army, and how did that transition into your civilian life and what you're doing now with your dental practice?
Well, I actually went to dental school first, and upon graduating from dental school, chose a career in the military because at that time it was the only job available, which was great. And during that time in the military, they allow you to get some extra training in terms of my specialty, which is pediatric dentistry. And upon graduating, upon retiring from the military, I decided to retire. I could have stayed. I had done 21 years. I could have stayed a little bit longer, but I felt like I wanted to be marketable in terms of getting out, and at a young age of 51, to get into the banking system and to borrow money to get in practice.
Right.
You know, and it just doesn't come easy.
Right.
And so that's how I got into my private practice.
So your private practice is pediatric dentistry, if I'm not mistaken, yes. Right? So your personality, because I've had conversations with you, so I know you're an old young guy. I mean, you're very jovial, and people just love being around you, especially children. What made you go into pediatric dentistry and not dealing with the adults?
Very good question. Actually, my first love, believe it or not, my first love in dentistry was going into what they call removable prosthodontics, and where you're working as a specialist, replacing eyes and ears and dentures and so forth. Once I got into dental school and went through the rigors of going through that particular department of prosthetics, I didn't like it. And working with the children, and one of our mentors in dental school, Dr. Parsons, you know, she gave me a very interesting vigor about coming into the department, doing dentistry, having fun with the kids and laughing and joking, and I enjoyed that. And it stuck with me ever since. Now,
your practice is located on the inner cities of America. That's where your practice is located.
Yes.
Was that done by you made a conscious decision to do that? Is there something in you that you just wanted to give back? What made you just focus really your practice in the inner cities of America?
You know, Dr. Diab, I was working for a gentleman out on the west side, actually southwest, in a very high rent district, so to speak. But I felt like I could give the inner city, the kids on the east side of San Antonio, the same thing that I was doing out on the southwest side. And the reason being is because at the time I was thinking about working as a mentor with the schools, San Antonio Independent School District. And so being in that area of the east side, the east side cluster had quite a few minority schools there that catered toward children. And I felt like I wanted to put my practice right in the heart of that. And talking with one of the owners of the medical center there on the east side, I felt it made a good fit for me. And so that's why I chose that area.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Before we move on to our break, let me ask you another question about that. When you talk about take a loved one to the doctor day, I know you're big on take a loved one to the dentist. Is going to the dentist as big of a problem, or lack thereof, as big of a problem as you see as take a loved one to the doctor? Is there something that you kind of like to talk about when it comes to take a loved one to the dentist? Is that something that you see we're not doing enough of as a community?
As a community, it would behoove us to reach out to the dental aspects of medicine, so to speak. Why? Because everything starts at the mouth. You know, we eat, we talk, we speak, we get impressed by others, and others are impressed by us, and our smile. And that's, as you have a very charming smile yourself.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
There you go. And it's important. You know, in fact, what they call the oral systemic connection. In other words, the oral cavity connects with the stomach, and the stomach connects with feeds everything else in terms of the body making it work. And so in order to make it a relationship that everything is going to work all in one, yes, I think it's very important that we should connect the two, dentistry and medicine.
He just used some words that I probably can't even pronounce. But we're going to come right back. I'm not letting him go just yet. So give you something to think about on the other side of All Things Educational. Welcome back to All Things Educational. I'm your host, Dr. Mateen Diop. Today we are talking to Dr. Loren Alves. We've been having a great conversation with him up to this point. Now, I want to continue the conversation because I wasn't going to let him go without talking about what he does at Meharry Medical College. For those of you who may not know, Meharry Medical College is I think it's the oldest HBCU as far as the medical sciences go in the nation. And I know it is in the South. Dr. Alves has a lot going on with Meharry Medical College, and I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that. So, Dr. Alves, Meharry Medical College, HBCUs, I know you're a big supporter of it. What do you have going on, and why do you feel it's so important for you to give back for your time at Meharry Medical College?
One of the reasons why I like Meharry is because it was the first school that accepted me into a dental program. What happened was I graduated from another HBCU, Central State University in Dayton, Ohio. I'm sorry, in Wilberforce, Ohio. And I graduated, and the next week I got a letter from them saying, please come to our summer program. And it's an enhancement program to help you pass the DAT, Dental Aptitude Test. So I went to the program, and I was doing quite well, but unfortunately, there was no guarantee. And so what happened was, actually, they called my wife on her job, and Washington University from St. Louis called my wife from their dental school. And I had to leave Meharry and go to the program that was going to afford me some money, number one, and to complete my dental school education. The fact that I would like to get back to Meharry is because of the fact that Meharry is interested in starting a residency program in pediatric dentistry. And I've spoken to the dean, spoken to talking about the things that she has in mind in terms of her vision and where she would like to take Meharry Medical College as far as the dental school and a residency, a postgraduate residency training program. And she's talked to me, and I'm very interested in doing that. And so that's what I like to do, is give back to the students who are going into this, particularly African American students who are interested in going to an HBCU, particularly a medical college, and doing a specialty training in pediatric dentistry, just as I did.
Now, are you having a hard time? What is it like on the recruiting trail, if you would? Our high school seniors, our high school students in particular, minority. Are you trying to recruit them specifically to go to Meharry, or are you just trying to recruit them just to go to college in general? What are your feelings on that whole recruitment and getting them into Meharry?
Well, the students still have to go to college. They have to do the the basic requirements to get into dental school as well as college. College, you have your basic core courses of science, chemistry, foreign language, and things like that. But getting into dental school, that's a whole nother bellowag. And the reason why is because it takes a very great GPA, grade point average, to do so, and also doing very well, as I said earlier, on the DAT, the Dental Aptitude Test. A lot of students, particularly African American students, males, feel that it's a lot of work. But if you think about it, 4 years of college, 4 years of dental school, and by the time you graduate from dental school, you'll be 26 years of age.
Right.
I can't tell you what opportunity and what authority and what credentials you would have at 26 years of age, which a lot of our young African American kids don't have.
Wow.
So I would like to pass on to them, the opportunity is still there.
Right.
And we would still like to see more African American young men and women, well, replace me for one.
Absolutely.
Because we are, we can't work forever.
Exactly.
But the idea is the fact that the school is there, and I have several students that I'm working with and mentoring them, trying to get them into dental school. And locally, we have an opportunity to talk with our kids here at Sam Houston High School. We're working with the Career Day with Burbank School. We're also doing a program with St. Philip's through their STEM program. So it's just a matter of some kid being pushed again by someone like yourself and myself to get out there and do it. You can do it if you really want to do it. You can make it if you try.
Let me change gears right now. You mentioned you're from Ohio, the state of Ohio, Ohio being a swing state. We just finished our presidential election and all that kind of stuff. What are the feelings like for native Ohioans, if you would, right now as it relates to this whole political climate that we're in?
Well, the fact that I started out working for General Motors in high school. I was a mechanic coming out of high school as a mechanic, as apprentice, working for General Motors. And General Motors at that time in the late 60s was General Motors, and the whole state of Ohio was supported by the auto industry. And the fact that it was an opportunity as a job-wise, it was an opportunity for me to excel in mechanics, but my concern, because of a particular dental anomaly or problem that I had with my teeth called rickets, vitamin D deficiency, I chose to go to another career path. But working in Ohio, as all my other brothers and sisters and friends did, we were in the auto industry heavily. Right. And the fact that the state of Ohio, late 60s, early 70s was a great state. Unfortunately, the way it swung back then was we got out of the auto industry, things started going south. But the fact that in this new political climate, I would say, is that everything is being brought back to fore as far as the industry, as far as jobs. And I love the industry, the fact that General Motors And a lot of the other periphery organizations and other companies are getting back into helping to support the employees of the state.
Can you stay around with us one more time?
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to come right back with more of Dr. Lauren Alves. We're going to get in some things you probably didn't know about him. I said he was a Paul Robeson of his day, so stay around. Don't go anywhere. I'll give you something to think about. All Things Educational. Welcome back to All Things Educational. I'm your host, Dr. Mateen Diop. We're finishing up with Dr. Lauren Alves. Like I told you before, he's the Paul Robeson of our day. That's my definition of him. I know he would never call himself that. But Dr. Alves, I want to talk to you about the slave narratives. I don't know if a lot of people know that Dr. Alves is actually an author. He's an actor. He's a singer. He used to sing with Heat Waves, so he told me that, and I'm gonna let him explain that. But he did sing with Heat Waves way back in the day. But Dr. Alves, I had an opportunity a few weeks ago to watch you perform in I like to call it a stage play called Slave Narratives with Divine Literary Publishing. Can you talk a little bit about first Divine Literary Publishing and how this whole slave narrative play came to be?
Divine Literary Publishing, which I'm the CFO of, we got together, Mr. Fred Williams is our managing editor. We got together and established a book, an anthology, and that anthology is called The Color of Strength, Embracing the Passion of Our Culture. And what we did in that book was we established 26 authors, unknowns, and we basically asked them to write a story, short story, essay, autobiography about themselves. And from that, we chose to use the book as a selling point in terms of not just into the neighborhood, but also using it as a means of connecting with the community. How do we do that? One of the things that we did was we paired up with Gemini Inc., who sponsored the program for the slave narratives. And what we did a few weeks ago was we got together, 6 of the authors, and we had these narratives from slaves that were interviewed in the early 30s, 1930, 38, and essentially talking about the way it really was during slavery time. And a lot of people don't like to talk about that. Unfortunately, that's the way history was. And so I became a part of that, and one of my characters in it, Richard Carruthers, just talking about how it really was.
Before I get you with Richard Carruthers, I'm going to bring you back to Richard Carruthers. Okay. You told me that you used to sing, not a lot of people know, that you sang with the group Heat Wave. Always and forever.
That's
what you said.
That's it.
How is that true? Did you really sing with Heat Wave?
Well, let me clarify it. We actually grew up together. Okay. Johnny Wilder, who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. Johnny Wilder and his family, we all grew up in the projects. I can name drop the DeSoto Bass Courts, Metropolitan Housing Authority, also known as the projects. We grew up there. And we had ourselves, Roger Troutman, for another one. We had some guys from Ohio Players. And we had little old Lauren Alves and Johnny Wilde and his brothers singing at recess, harmonizing, trying to harmonize. Unfortunately, Dr. Diop, I couldn't make it. So yes, I started out with the group. Unfortunately, I didn't get to hang with them, So as you know, the rest is history.
So if I read some of the album covers, I might see your name maybe in the bottom.
No, not at all. Right. Not at all.
Well, look, let me before I let you go, I want to do something with you. You did the slave narrative, slave Richard Carruthers. It was breathtaking to me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Can you give us just a few seconds, a taste of Richard Carruthers?
Certainly. Well, my Missy Myra, she was a good overseer maid, 99-year-old. But that overseer, he was a devil himself, temper, born of the devil. His name was Tom Hill, so we called him Devil Hill. And Devil Hill, that man, he would make me sit down and make a 8-plat whip, just to whip us for nothing. And what he'd do was he'd start at the heel, come up the back, all the way up the head. And he did that just to make sure that he got good retribution for himself as an overseer.
You heard it. Dr. Lauren Alves was our guest on this very first edition of All Things Educational. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Give you something to think about. All Things Educational.
Hello, I'm Dr. Lauren Alves. I'm here to talk about something that's very dear and near to my heart, and that is giving back. Why is that? For a long time in my career, I was always being given support by others in the neighborhood or at the church, in the community. What I would like to talk about is the fact that my mother, at a very young age, knowing that I had problems with my teeth, in fact, at the tender age of 18 months, I didn't have my lower incisor teeth. My baby teeth didn't grow because I had a disease known as rickets, vitamin D deficiency. And she took me to a children's hospital. In other words, her concern was the fact that her baby was walking around with no teeth and knock knees, and she wanted to find out how could she correct that. So she went to a children's hospital, and from that day on, going to the children's hospital in Dayton, Ohio, and pursuing getting braces on my legs, and knowing that you know, the braces like Forrest Gump wore when he was in the movie running, and the kids say, "Run, Forrest Gump, run." Well, you might call me Brother Gump because I was running always in those braces, which were kind of heavy with the Buster Brown shoes on. And the fact that my mother had the foresight to make a correction of something that had happened long before I was born. A lot of mothers, young mothers, don't know, but the development of the teeth start 5 months after fertilization. I'm sorry, 5 weeks after fertilization. In other words, during that first trimester. And that's why it's so important when we talk about prevention and making sure that you're getting the children the proper nourishment so that you will have a normal developing child. It's important, as my mother thought it would be, to follow up and make a correction to something that had gone awry. As life and as time goes on, we tend to get support, not just from our parents, but from our brothers and our sisters in the community. One of the most important things that ever happened to me in my career in becoming, started out as a mechanic. General Motors, working for General Motors back in the late 60s. And I really was thinking about getting back into something that was dear to my heart, and that was dentistry. Why didn't my teeth grow? Why did I have a problem with my knees? Well, I pursued college, and in that pursuit I ran into a good friend of mine whose husband just happened to work with my brother, and she approached me saying that I understand you want to be a dentist. I said, yes ma'am. And ironically, the other important lady in my life, my wife Phyllis, well, this young lady's name was Phyllis, so it all tied in. So we got together, we talked about it. In fact, she invited me to her job. Her job was Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Dental Clinic. And she said, son, if you're really serious, if you really want to pursue that career, you have got to get busy and you've got to get serious about studies. And I did just that. So I pursued the course, starting out at Central State University to get my degree in biology and science. And upon graduating, I was invited to attend a college in Nashville, Tennessee, Meharry Medical College. At that time, the support was for a summer program to enhance our scores on the DAT, the Dental Aptitude Test. And at that time, we had mentors. We had students who were working during the summer to help us to improve our scores. And at that time, I was on my way into getting into Meharry. Unfortunately, the money wasn't there. So I was able to get a call. My wife actually called me, and the Washington University in St. Louis called her on the job and said, hey, your husband's on the alternate list. We'd love for him to come out. In that process of going to Washington University and completing my graduation from dental school and getting involved with the community and being involved with giving back to other students to help them out, one of our famous historians, Dr. E.B. Du Bois, talked about the talented tenth. Why is it so important to give back? Well, he suggested the fact that we have to, those of us who have made it, those of us have done well, reach back and help other young men and young women because it's a need. And that need is far-reaching, and therefore, let's do it. Let's continue to reach back and support our other brothers and sisters. Once again, this is Dr. Loren Alves coming to you and letting you know that those of you who are interested in talking to me or getting in touch with me so that we can all give back can reach me at my website at awellofasmile.com or 210-208-6525. That's my office number. And remember, it's so important to help others, to help themselves, as well as we can help all in the community. And once again, this is Dr. Loren Alves with A Well of a Smile.
Welcome back to All Things Educational, the video show. Well, we've made it to the end. Our very first show, and we're wrapping up. I can't tell you what a good time I had today. I want to thank our special guest, Dr. Lauren Alvarez. And just remember, if you want more information about All Things Educational, the video show, or All Things Educational, the magazine, log on to our website at www.allthingseducational.com. There you'll be able to purchase copies of the magazine. You can purchase copies of my new book, Inner City Public Schools Still Work, How One Principal's Life is Living Proof. So don't forget, log on to that website for all kinds of information. Before I let you go, I want to leave you with something to think about. Dr. Cornel West and Tavis Smiley are traveling the country right now talking about this whole issue with poverty and how they want to hold President Obama's feet to the fire when it comes to poverty in the United States. Well, my question here at All Things Educational is, what exactly can the president do about poverty? What can any president do about poverty? Do you want the president to write you a check? Do you want the president to give some special program just for you? Well, I personally believe that if you want to lift yourself out of poverty and get what President Obama calls the middle class, it's only going to take you and your efforts. President Obama has given millions and billions of dollars to HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, to do many different things. It's up to you to take advantage of those programs. Is there poverty in America? Of course. Can we do something about it? Of course. How can we do it? One household at a time. Thank you for watching All Things Educational, and that is something to think about. Peace. Finished my show. This is the end of the first. I'm telling you, and I'm tired, but I'm a good tired, and I'm glad you came on. But I know I caught you. You know, you're supposed to be playing golf today, and I want to apologize to you. But you should have brought your golf clubs with you. But how you feel, man?
I feel good. I think it was great. I think you kind of tested me there for a while. But going back and talking about how we grew up, who we grew up with, who helped us out, and everything, and that's important for these kids to know now. And in fact, down the road, let's say, when the show is at its 100th viewing, and you all that in a bag of chips.
That's right. I'm gonna be all that in a bag of chips.
Well, I want to be there. I want to come back for that. I think it's a positive thing. It's going to be good for the community. And you're doing great, man. Good concept. All things educational, and that's what they need to know.
And that's really what this whole thing is about, man. As I go, like I told you when I wanted you on the show, and I saw you at the Slave Narratives, and I didn't know you could act. I didn't know you could sing and all that kind of stuff. And just kind of talking to you, man, I just thought that you were just the perfect guest, and I'm gonna actually have you back if I'm blessed enough to have 100 episodes. You'll be my 100th guest.
Thank you.
So I'm just letting you know right now. So don't go too far. I know you like to travel and all that kind of stuff. Speaking of that, traveling and all that kind of stuff, where you going next? I know you're getting ready to leave the city. Where you going?
Well, actually, we're gonna be installing a new president for the National Dental Association in December. And that's not until the second week in December. Okay. But my wife say I've been acting all my life, but more importantly that it's fun, and we'll be traveling, having a good time. But it was funny you talked about the fact that poverty in America,
right,
and everything. And I remember my first job with Sears, $1.65 an hour. Can you imagine that? That's big money, man. That's big money. And I've done much better. I got a suit and tie now. But the thing is, a lot of kids know there's a jump off point somewhere. You got to start somewhere.
That's right.
Somebody's going to help you, and it's not always just given to us. Just like look at you. I remember you a couple years ago.
A few years ago. We share some of the same stuff, people don't know Dr. Alvarez and I, both members of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, but I'm older than him. I'm just letting you know that now, but I'm just saying.
In the frat.
But look, man, we didn't get to talk about this on the show, but your wife, beautiful wife, y'all been married, what, 72 years? How long y'all been married?
41 years.
41 years. How you make it 41 years with one woman? She's a beautiful woman, but how you do it? What's the secret, man?
Well, it's just like I told you before, milestones. One thing you have kids, next thing you're working for the next car, next thing you work for the next house. Before you know it, you got 20, 30 years under your belt. And then grandkids come along, and before you know it, we're headed on our way toward 50 years, which is good.
That's very good.
And it's about the sacrifice. I think that when people talk about sacrifice when you're married, the sacrifice is the fact that you make it work together.
Right.
And that's what we've done.
You gonna write a book on marriage, relationships? 41 years, I know you have to have something to say positive to make people get married and stay married.
Let me check with my wife first.
But look, man, I mean, this is I can't thank you enough again for what you've done, for what you continue to do, giving back Meharry Medical College, your pediatric dentistry. I've been in your office a few times, man, and you're training up these nurses. Just want to say thank you, man, and I cannot wait to have you back on again. So don't be a stranger.
I'll be back.
All right, bro.
Yes, sir.
All right. All things educational. Outtakes. See you next time. Peace.